Hello folks, Buckley here. So we are going to practice some orthographic projection sketching, and then we're going to move on to isometric sketching. And we're going to do this with two puzzle cube pieces. Okay, so I've got two puzzle cube pieces here that are probably similar to what you guys are creating right now. And we're going to create orthographic projection sketches of both of these, as well as isometrics. All right, so let's start with the piece that may be a little bit easier of the two. It's just an L-shaped piece. It's made out of 4 blocks. Okay, so 4 of those little blocks glued together to form a shape of an L. All right, so first thing we need to decide is what is the front view of this object. Another thing I want you to notice, I'm going to do everything in layout view or landscape view like I instructed you. This is portrait, this is landscape. You should always do your engineering drawings in landscape, okay? All right, so rules about how we select our front view are you want to select a front view that shows the most interesting shape of the object, okay? So in our case, that would be this L, right? So if you want to hold it this way or hold it this way, it really doesn't matter, just that shows this L shape. The other rule is that you want to pick a view that for the front view that doesn't have hidden lines, or it has the fewest number of hidden lines. So for example, you wouldn't want to pick a front view like this, okay, because there's a hidden line that's going to show up that's this back edge here on that view. So that would not be an appropriate choice for a front view. The most appropriate choice is this view right here, okay? So what we're going to do is I'd like you for your homework not to use a ruler. So let me repeat that. No rulers on the homework. All right, we're practicing our sketching techniques. These are 1/2-inch cubes, okay, so I'm going to practice sketching a straight line that's about 3/4 of an inch, okay, so 1, 2, 3, and then I'll come over about 1/4 inch, and I'll come this way about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to call that my front view. Okay, and if I make a mistake, I'm just going to leave it because I'm going to come back over this with a black pen at some point too, right? Okay, so this bottom line here, all right, and I might take this one up just to square that off. Okay, now, so if that is this view, okay, my top view, so remember I'm using 3rd angle projection, so next up is my top, is going to look something like that. So let's look at that for a second. So first thing I want to do is I want to extend all the edges, okay, up from this drawing, extend it up. All right, and this is a technique we're using for sketching. Know that when you're switching over to using a CAD package like SolidWorks, it's going to do all this for you, okay? So you really don't need to worry about that when you're doing SolidWorks. All right, so this is interesting, right? These are the outer edges. So if I'm looking at this from this view, dead on, straight up and down, I'm going to put it under the camera just so you can see. I've got this edge, and this edge, okay? Top and bottom. Now, you've also got this edge that you need to account for, right? And this edge and this guy underneath are both solid edges, okay? So I want another edge that's coming down this way, all right? So that would be my appropriate top view. All right, we're going to do one last view. So we've done front to top. Now we need a right side view. Okay, so a right side view is going to look at the object like this, coming in from this side. So we're going to hold our object like this in order to do a right side view. Okay, so again, I'm going to extend my lines. Extend these guys off. Okay, and I am sketch the outer edges, okay? Now, note that when I'm looking at this from this side, again, I'm going to see directly, I'm going to see this edge, right? So I need to represent this edge on this drawing. Okay, so let me go over this now. So I've got all object lines here, right? All solid lines on this drawing, okay? So front, top, and then my right side. All right, let me go over this to neaten it up. We do expect you to go over your drawings with pen and erase any working marks. Okay, that's good practice. I'm going to use my eraser and come through and erase all my sketch marks. Okay, so that's a nice clean orthographic projection of this piece. Now let's move on to the slightly more complicated piece, okay? And we'll come back to each piece when we do our isometric sketch in a second. Okay, we got this blue guy here, okay? So we spin it around in space so you can kind of get a sense of what the shape of it is, all right? So our first thing is we're going to pick out what we think to be an appropriate front view. Okay, and you could argue a little bit on what that front view might be. I think that the way I'm holding it right now is actually the correct front view. My reasoning for that is it's showing this interesting shape that looks like a rectangle with a little piece cut out, okay? It doesn't show all of the features of this little nub that's coming out of the front, okay? But that's not going to show up on the front view, but I'll get that from a side view. The other neat feature about this, or reason why it would be an appropriate choice for a front view, is that it's not going to have any hidden lines. So it's got an interesting shape. It's showing the overall shape of the object. Again, not a lot of clarity about this little nub on that front view, but it does not have any hidden lines. Okay, so that would be a better choice than, for example, this. This would be the other argument, right, that maybe that is your best choice, but that doesn't give you a sense of the height of the object, so that's why I wouldn't pick this one. And then a side view like this, right, would, again, it's not showing this front feature, or this feature that is like a rectangle with a cube cut out, and there's going to be a hidden line on this one. Okay, so I would pick this as the front view, although there's a little bit more room for argument as to what your choice is there. Okay, so again, these are 1/2 inch cubes, so I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle that's what I think to be a 3 by 2, okay? So 3 high by 2 across, right? And again, I'm not using a ruler, and I'm not using lined paper, okay? So we really are trying to practice our sketching skills, okay? So hold yourself back from using lined paper or anything like that. All right, next I'm going to do this little cutout and this addition, right, on the front. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing here. I come back through and I'm going to erase these lines just to remind myself when I go back over it with pen not to sketch those, but that would be the front view. Okay, now let's look at the top. All right, so I'm going to extend these lines up just like I did last time. And this is too wide, right? So that's, I'm going to want to go 1, 2 blocks wide and 2 across. Now this shape, right, it's coming in, it's going down. Give myself a little extra room there. Coming over. Okay, so that's the outer L, right? But I've got all these object lines that I need to consider, right? I've got an object line here. I've got another line here that's forming this edge. Okay, so all of these edges are also object lines. Right, so this looks like boop, 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 boop. right, I'm going to erase just for a little bit of clarity here. All right, last is going to be my right side view. Okay, I'm going to look at the object like this. All right. And in this view, I've got some hidden lines to contend with, so let me do that. So I'm going to sketch all of my features coming over. This is that back edge. It's going to be 1 wide. And this guy's going to be 1, oops, 1 across. So those are kind of the outer edges that I see when I'm looking at that dead on, right? I see another L, but there's some hidden lines that I need to be aware of when I'm doing this, right? This is not the same as this. Okay, even though from this view it looks the same, there's a lot more going on behind this piece. There's a lot more of the object that I need to describe in this right side drawing than on this one, right? This one, there's nothing else going on. Okay, so even though these are both L's, this one needs additional lines on this to convey that there's more features that are going on behind it and to be consistent with the rest of the drawing. Okay, so the first one that I need to contend with is there's a line that goes across here that represents this back edge, right? This edge right here. So that's going to be a dotted line. It's going to be a dotted line. All right, and then the other one is this edge for the feature, right? So this edge right here is showing up back behind this guy. So that's going to be a vertical hidden line coming down. All right, so now I'm ready for this to go over this in pen. Okay, so I use my thicker marker for object lines, and I use a thinner pen, which I recommended you get for my hidden lines to give me a different line weight. So I'm just going to go over these lines. And I'm just doing the object lines right now, right? Just the object lines. Okay. And now I'll do my 2 hidden lines. All right, now I'll come in with my eraser. Get rid of all my sketching. All right, and that's a fairly decent orthographic projection of this piece, okay, as a sketch. A couple things here, right? This line's a little sloped, got a little, my corners aren't exactly square, but for a first sketch, not a bad thing, okay? All right, now let's talk about isometric sketching. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do is we're using a third angle projection for each of these pieces so that we can save a little room up here in the top right to represent the object in 3 dimensions. And the way that we're going to represent it is with an isometric sketch, and that isometric sketch is going to look something like this when we're done with it on the paper. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and color it in and shade it and all that kind of stuff too. It's just a way for people who are glancing at the paper to get a sense of the 3D layout of the image. Okay, so so sometimes it takes some time to understand the object. Actually, it's the wrong object. Sometimes it takes some time to understand the object when you're looking at an orthographic projection, which is why if you include this 3D image up in the top right, you can understand it a little quicker. Okay. All right. So we're going to start again with the easier piece. Okay, and I'm going to pull out some isometric sketch paper, okay, and I will have some of this available to you guys in class, and I'll also leave some outside my office door if you want to pick it up. You can print it out. On Sakai under resources, I've left some of it for you, a PDF of it, so you can print it out, but I'll also make sure there's some hard copy available. Okay, I'm going to orient my isometric sketch paper like this. I'm going to wind up doing a sketch on this paper, and then I'm going to cut it out and transfer it onto my drawing. I'll show you how to do that. So it doesn't really matter where I put it on the paper at the moment. Okay, so first thing is you want to make sure that your front view, so the way that an isometric sketch lays out is, I'm just going to do this really quick, okay, is that your front view of your drawing, this is the front, right? This is the top, and this is the right side. Okay, so you want to make sure that when you're sketching, you've got the orientation correct. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 vertical lines and 2 going back to represent 1 cube. Okay, so a single cube in my puzzle cube is going to look like this, a single block. Okay, so just to give you guys a sense of the size. All right, and that'll be roughly on par with what I just sketched. Okay, we're not going to be so picky about the scale. Okay, this is not a formal hand drawing drafting exercise. This is still a sketch. Okay, so so don't sweat too much if the scale is off. All right, so we've got 3 blocks high. So if I'm looking at the front view, what I like to do first is actually sketch out sort of the bigger envelope of the object. So this object, this L, really lives inside of a 3 by 2 by 1 cube, right, or cuboid shape. Okay, so I'm going to go 3 high, right? So 3 high, 2 over. I can complete the view on which I'd sketch my front view, and then this is 1 back. Okay, so this is my block that I can then carve out this L shape. The L is going to be formed by taking out 1, so a 2 blocks over here in the corner. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase those so you can see what I just did. And then sometimes your object, it doesn't get super clear until after you, and I need a little line going back here representing this back edge, right? You're going to see that back edge. You're not going to see this one, interestingly. That's hidden back here, right? So this edge would be back there. On an isometric sketch, you don't wind up showing your hidden lines. You just show your object lines, okay? All right, so I'm going to go over the object lines here just for clarity, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to color it, and then I'm going to do a little bit of shading, okay? Or actually, I think I'll do the shading first, and then I'll do the coloring. All right, there's a couple ways to do it. I usually just give a couple hash marks on the front face in a particular direction. If you need to, so that just makes it really clear that this is all on one front face. Some people may also want to shade. If you do too much shading, it can get a little confusing, so I recommend doing just 1 or 2 faces shaded, but you can, if you feel more artistically inclined, certainly go for it, but sometimes that can be confusing. All right, so, and then the last thing that we want you to do is just kind of come in with a colored pencil and color code the object. So isometric sketch paper has the lines that I mentioned in the PowerPoint already laid out, right? So there's already, the way these lines are set up, you've already got your 120 degrees, 120 degrees, 120 degrees laid out, which can be kind of tough to sketch on your own. It's doable, but a little tough. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just cut this out, okay, and I'm going to tape it down on my orthographic projection sketch to form a complete drawing of the L. Okay, so this would go in this top right corner. Again, you'd be doing this in your engineering notebook. We want each piece on a separate page. Okay. Give it a little title. Okay. Okay. So this would be what we'd expect to see on a single page in your notebook, where you're taping in. If you're using the isometric sketch paper, you're actually taping that in. Okay. All right, let's do the other one, which is a little trickier, and then that'll be the end of our little mini lesson here. All right, oops, don't need that. I need another sheet of this. Okay, so this guy. All right, a little bit more complicated, right? But let's use our same method, which is see if we can't fit this within an envelope, right? Remembering too that this is our front view, so our final orientation should look something like this, right? Where front, top, and right side are going to be visible on our object. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so it's a 3 tall, 2 across, and 2 deep. So I'm going to start right 1, 2, 3. 2 deep, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's the space that we have to work in. All right, now one thing I can do is I can immediately, I'm going to put down this little feature, which is the only one that really resides on the true front face, right? So that's going to go here. It goes back 1, and then it goes up to form this, again, the L on the right side. Okay, so I'm going to come down. This is going to come across, this is going to come across. I might come in here and start erasing some things for clarity. Okay. This guy comes like this, and then it goes down, and then it goes over, back, all right, so I'm definitely going to need some shading on this to help me help my viewer understand this object, right? I'm going to need a little bit of shading. Here's where I'd recommend doing everything that's front facing with a little bit of a crosshatch. Okay, so actually I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my object lines right now, and then I'll erase them. You do enough isometric sketches on your own, particularly of objects that are not made out of cubes, and you are really appreciative of SolidWorks, which will do this for you automatically. Right, so promise the pain with the sketching will only last for a little bit in this course. All right. Now, like I mentioned, it's nice at this point to let's see, you could do, if I want to do the front facing. So you know what, I'll still do the front facing. Okay, so I'm just going to sketch everything that's front facing on this object. And maybe I'll do top facing with a different hatch. So I've got 3 that are top facing, or actually I'll do left facing with it, or right facing with a different hatch. So what I mean about, you don't want to overdo it with your shading because it'll confuse things. So that's okay. I mean, I think it's showing basically that you've got these 2 different sides, right? It's the front face has got a tighter hatch going to the left, and then the right side has got a looser hatch. Okay, now just again, we want to see them colored. And I'll cut it out. Okay, so that would be an appropriate sketch for this piece. So we've just done 2 pieces of a 5-piece puzzle. You're just going to repeat this, make sure that all 5 pieces, each piece is on a separate page in your notebook, and that each has an orthographic projection sketch and an isometric sketch, and they're neatly done. We wind up doing them in pen by the end. Okay, so you go over everything in pen. And these would be perfectly fine. Okay, these would be perfectly fine for your homework. All right, bye-bye, guys.